Hello out there everybody, welcome to the ATCB Variety Hour, where there's a slight variety of things, but it usually takes less than an hour. This may be slightly different, I don't know how long this is going to go, I've got quite a lot of things to say. So, this is Sid Meier's Civilization 6. Bit of a kind of caveat to this. I'm not going to be really talking about how Civ 6 works all that much, or the concept of the game or anything like that. Civ is a big enough franchise that it can do that on its own, and because I'm generally going to be talking about how Civ 6 compares to Civ 5 and other previous games in the Civ franchise, really this is kind of for Civ heads, or at least people with a passing interest in the game already. Like I say, I'm not going to really talk about the very fundamentals of how things work. What I'm going to be talking about is the differences in the evolution of the game. So, yeah, if you don't really know much about Civ, this might not be for you, but hey, maybe stick around anyway, or go watch one of our Civ 5 series, and that'll settle everything for you. So, Civ 6. I've got a lot to say about this, about the differences in this game, and I've also... they're not all good. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the bad things first, I'm going to talk about the things that are mixed, and then I'm going to talk about the good things, because I want to end on a high note, because generally, broadly speaking, I do like the game. But let's have a look at some of the bad things first when we hold this up compared to other Civ games and, hell, other 4X games in general. So, first things first, let's cover some of the kind of tea and toilets basics here. The cost of the game. This game retails for £50 on Steam at launch and on pre-order. Now, I know the trend of games at the moment is moving up. You know, you can get your latest Call of Duties and Battlefields and whatnot, and they're going to cost you 50 quid as well, on console as well as PC now. I get why the cost of developing games is going up, therefore the cost of release games is going up. The world economy is not exactly in a booming state, and therefore games are going to cost more. Their development cycles are greater. The amount of skilled work needed to put into them to make them and distribute them and sell them is higher. I get that. However, I massively do resent paying the same amount of money for a digitally distributed game as for a physical copy as you would with a console. 50 quid is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And is this game worth £50? Well, the amount, if you like the game, then the amount of time you put into it, of course it is. There's no question that a Civilization game is worth £50 if you're going to enjoy it, and you're going to enjoy it unreservedly, and you're going to play multiple games of it. The amount of hours you will pump into this game is you know, insane. And ultimately, I tend to use... people, I may have talked about this in board game videos before, I tend to use a scale of I pay £10 to go see a film. A film takes 2 hours, therefore £5 an hour is a valid amount of money to spend on something. Will Civ last me more than 10 hours? Of course it will. One game will last me 20 hours, and I will play it a lot of times over. So, is it worth it? Yes. Is it a bit of a pain in the arse to pay it? Yes. Going on about this is a video in and of itself talking about the increased cost of game development and how that's passed on to the consumer. I won't go on about it. Let's move on. So, a second thing, a bit of a niggle, not a huge thing, something I suspect will be corrected in expansions. There's no diplomatic victory. That surprised me. Because diplomatic victories have been a thing in Civ for a while. It's something I quite enjoy. At the same time, if any kind of victory is going to be dropped, I understand why it is diplomatic victory. It's an awkward thing to implement, and kind of adjudge how that's going to happen. And also, it's especially awkward in terms of multiplayer. How do you handle diplomatic victory in multiplayer? Because, I mean, I myself have seen, you know, numerous YouTube Let's Plays of multiplayer Civ where someone's won with diplomatic victory and it's just a cheese way, you know, someone's dominating the game, everyone else decides to vote for the lowest ranking player just to spite them, essentially. Yeah, and, you know, a lot of the time in good humour, not you know, viciously. But, yeah, I get why that's the one that's dropped. But it would have been nice to see a diplomatic victory in there. The next thing, and this is going to be somewhat controversial, maybe. I don't know. So, for anyone who hasn't been informed about Civ 6 whatsoever, there are now essentially 2 technology trees. One of them is a traditional technology tree, as Civ has always had, barring the tech web in Beyond Earth. And the other is a civics tree. The civics tree is essentially replacing... is one of the things essentially replacing the cultural policies, those kind of pseudo skill tree things that were present in Civ 5, Beyond Earth. Now, a lot of people have talked about this as, oh, it's great, there's 2 different trees and you progress down them, you know, that's different and interesting. There are things to do with those trees that are excellent, and I will get onto those later, but fundamentally, for me, 2 tech trees is just like having 1 tech tree for the purposes of the game. Sure, it's like having 1 tech tree where you pick 2 different things to research at once. It's not exactly like that because science goes into one of them and culture goes into the other. So you have different things fueling those, but the fundamental feel in the game, when you're playing it, when one pops up, I have no different feeling than when another pops up. You know, when Siege Tactics pops here, it feels the same as when Nationalism pops. They give me different things, sure, but there's no different feeling to it. There's no different buzz in my head to that. Whereas in Civ 5 and Beyond Earth, if a policy popped, it was like, great, I get to pick something else on the tree, a big permanent boost that's going to stick with me for the rest of the game. This, nothing like that. I get one tech, I get another tech. Some of the things on the civics tree also just generally act as techs. You know, you get wonder, like this, for instance, when you get natural history, you get a building, a wonder, a unit, and a resource type. So it's just like a normal tech. In others, you get what are called policies. So we'll get onto the actual policies in a minute. But fundamentally, I far preferred the policy system and the culture system in Civ 5. It added something different feeling to the game. It gave my Civ overall bonuses that would last me the whole game and allowed me to sculpt the permanent boosts to my Civ in a way that accentuated my movement towards a victory and which marked that Civ out as different from the other Civs in the game and the other Civs I played in different games. I really liked it. It's not in this, and I definitely miss it. It feels like a hole in the game from Civ 5. So there we go. So how do policies work in this game if you earn them in the civics tree? Well, essentially, you have a government. So governments have made a return to Civ. And these governments have policy slots. You earn the policies through the civics tree, and you can slot a number of different things in. Now, okay, it's interesting I'm talking about it here because it links to the civics tree. It's not really a negative, it's more of a mixed thing, but it's negative for me because it replaces the policy trees, and I far preferred them. There are interesting things that it does. For example, you can only change them freely on a turn in which you unlock new, on which your civics tree pops and you unlock new policies. That's interesting. On other turns you have to pay to do it. That's interesting. The actual things you can do are quite interesting. At the moment, I'm reducing my unit maintenance. I'm getting more gold from commercial hub buildings, an extra amenity. If you don't know what a lot of these words mean, I'm going to cover them later, so don't worry about that. More great engineer points per turn. And that's interesting. That's fun. A lot of them are quite flavorful. Some of them in dubious ways, such as this one. I'm obviously not feeling too dubious about it, otherwise I wouldn't have selected it. But there's one for native conquest, which means that combat victories over units from earlier eras provide gold equal to their 50% of their combat strength. And whoa, that is loaded politically. But I won't be talking too much about the politics inherent in this, because they've always been a thing in Civ games. It's just nowadays, I guess, people are more politically aware about these things. But we won't discuss them in terms of the game, in terms of this video, because it is what it is, you know. Undoubtedly, there'll be a Civ 6 playthrough from me later, probably with Chris Corline or him, Neil, or any number of the other ATCBers. And we'll probably have a chat about that while playing it, so I won't get into it too much here. Some other things, so basically the different governments, as you go through time, you get different sets of them available to you, and they offer you more policy slots. That's nice, that's fine. They also give you their own little bonuses, and you get legacy bonuses. So the longer you stay in a particular government, the more permanent bonuses you get. But to be brutally honest, they're trifling. I stayed in Classical Republic for a good long while, and I got 3% bonus Great People points. That's nothing. I mean, that number is nothing in the grand scheme of the game. It really is not. Great People points are significant in their hundreds. You know, getting an extra 3 points per 100 is really not going to do much for me. I was Autocracy for a while. Bonus on Wonder Production 1%. Pfft, nothing. It's worth nothing. So I like the idea of these. I think they need to go up to have any significance. Double them, maybe even triple them. So yeah, that's a thing. So these are all right. These are fundamentally alright. I have no problem with these. I actually don't think they need to have replaced cultural policies. I think you could have had governmental, you could call them something else. You could call them diktats. You could call them any number of different things. I think these could have existed alongside cultural policies. But hey, there we go. And ultimately, they're not a bad thing. They're just... because they're transitory and you shift them all the time, that is interesting. Being able to adapt is interesting, but there's nothing I'm doing to give my Civ big long-term permanent boosts. And that's what I like to do. I'm not saying it's a fundamental choice that's negative. I'm saying that for me, I preferred the way it worked in Civ 5 and Beyond Earth. Okay, we're done with that. Let's move on. The UI. I've listed this under bad. It's my last thing listed under bad. It could be mixed, because in some ways the UI is quite clean and it's quite nice. And you know what? It is mixed. A, because this top bar is a hell of a lot better than either the vanilla Civ top bar or the top bar you end up with in Brave New World, which is very similar. It's obviously drawn a lot from the enhanced UI mod for Civ 5, which is no bad thing. I hope somewhere along the line those guys are credited, though, because it was a great mod. And this bar is fine for telling you information. It's absolutely fine. I quite like that the diplomacy tabs buttons, I don't know whatever you call them, for talking to other players are on the top bar. I also like that you have one for yourself so that you can click in. It'll take a while to boot in now just for the animation. That will tell me my my unique abilities for my Civ, which is Rome, in case you hadn't noticed. I like that. That's good. It's handy, especially when you're playing that Civ for the first time. These tabs, they are... You know what? They're passable in some ways. They give you the information. It's all quite clean and pleasant looking, so that's a good thing. But here's my fundamental problem with the UI. It's nice looking, but it's not very functional. It's not very functional at all. So here's an example. We just had a look at the trade overview briefly there. Now, what would be a handy thing for this trade overview to do? Well, I don't know. Maybe being sorted by food, or production, or gold, or science, or culture, or anything else. Because, hey, I can't do this. And let me tell you, this game is currently in 1290 AD. I've completed this game now. I loaded it halfway through because I didn't want to kind of show the full end game for some reason. I don't really know why. And oh my god, the amount of trade routes I had available to me were huge, because you can build really wide in this game. More on that later. And not being able to sort trade routes by that, or, you know, sort city-states by the amount of envoys they have. More on that later. Wow. These reports, I mean, they give you information, sure, but they're a fucking spreadsheet. I mean, I'm never going to use this, because it's just impenetrable to me. It's giving me information. It's not giving me pertinent information in a way in which it's easy to see. The summary at the bottom, I guess, is useful, but when am I really going to do that? Because it tells me, oh, my total income and my total expenses, and the results. I can see the result up here. So, I guess building expenses, but I'm never really going to use that. Resources, I get the total number of resources here. Fine, I guess, but it's just a lot of listed information. Luxuries and bonuses at the bottom, I get a summary of it, which bleeds out over the edge of the window. Fundamental error there. So it's all very clean and nice looking, but it just doesn't come across as very functional. It is begging for an overall a UI overhaul, which will probably come from a mod before it comes from the devs, which is fine. These things are what happens. I know this. I'm not generally complaining, but oh boy. Yeah, so the UI could use a bit of work. It's not very functional. It's nice. It's nice, but it's not functional. There's some stuff down here, to like lenses to do with, like you can see the different continents. You can see the settler view, where better places to settle, which is nice. Government, political, tourism, blah, blah, blah. I didn't really use these in the game, but I can see that they'd be handy. You've got some map options here, blah, blah, blah. Yield icons, I never play with those. You've got map pins. I never use them, but I can see how many players would, and I might in the future. That's a nice feature. Strategy view. I never use strategy view. Everyone, when this was released, went, oh my god, the strategy view looks amazing. I think I mean, it's kind of pretty, but it looks fucking cluttered to me. I could not play the game like this. So, yeah, fine. UI problems. I said I was going to end the bad there, but I just remembered my worst thing about the game, which I inexplicably left off my list here. Unit auto cycle. Oh my god. Oh my god. Let me see if I can get an example of it up. I might not be able to, depending on how I've saved this, but yeah, I think I can. So, I'll just move my crossbowman over here. That's fine. Let's see what this does now. Okay. Now, in that example, that wasn't a terribly good example because it moved a unit nearby. It went to a unit nearby the other units. Most of the time, let me assure you, it does not do that. If I had a shit ton of units back over in my continent, I'd be pinging back and forth between them a lot. Unit cycle is something that was in Civ 5, but for some reason it feels worse in this. Potentially, I might have modded it out in Civ 5. Auto cycle of units, it makes me mad, and I find it really difficult to actually explain how much it makes me mad. Because it just sends me pinging all over the map. I am capable of finding my units. There's already a unit needs orders button, which I can use to transfer between units. There's no particular unit list, which is a bit of a pain in the arse, although I believe I can click between units with something around here, maybe? I think that's something in the game. But anyway, auto-cycle units, oh my god, it's from hell. Make it go away. I'm sure a mod will come out soon that will get rid of it. I think you can go into the ini files and already switch it off somewhere. I haven't done that yet because I don't tend to play around with the game until I've done my first playthrough of it. But yeah, auto-cycle can go burn in hell. It really can. Right, let's move on to more mixed things, although we've covered some of them already. Like I say, this is going to be a long video, so you can probably already see how long it's going to be from the timer, I'm sure. But, you know, those are the bad things. Let's go on to the middling things. So, unit movement. Unit movement has had a bit of a tweak in that, for example, in Civ 5, so if I were to move... this musketman has 2 movement, okay? Moving through hills and forest takes up 2 movement. Moving through flatland takes up 1 movement, okay? There's a few more nuances in that, but that's fundamentally what we're talking about here. In Civ 5, if I had 2 movement, I would have been able to use up my remaining movement to go into a 2 movement tile and then ended, right? So if I'd moved into this hill first, I would have then stopped because my 2 movement was used up. However, I could have also used up a fragment of movement to move into a 2 movement area. In this game, you cannot. Therefore, for example, my Roman musketman in Civ 5, if I'd moved here, I would have then been able to move into the forest. What this means is that sometimes you'll be able to move forward and then effectively not be able to move anywhere with your second point of movement at all. So you just... Units are slower. Units are slower in this. I put it as mixed because it was something that was more that I had to get used to. But I also find it a bit stodgy. A lot of the time I'll have to end my unit's turn because they can't move anywhere. Not because I didn't want to move anywhere. So in that case, it's a little halting and stodgy. It's no big deal, though. It's fine. Let's move on. Let's go to... let's talk about the graphics, shall we? So, like many people, when Civ 6 was first announced and they showed some screenshots, I went, holy Christ, that looks like a mobile game. What the fuck have you done? And to a certain extent, I still feel the same way. I think Civ 5, for all the fact that it's, God, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years old, is prettier. I think it's a prettier game. I'm not against cartoony and stylized at all. Hell, I loved the leader animation in Civ 5, and the leader animation in Civ 6 as well. I really like it. It's very similar in a lot of ways, and I really like it. It's really flavorful. It's really cool. I like the look of them. The actual, you know, the terrain, it just, and this is the thing, it's not that it's cartoony, it's that it looks like a mobile game. And by that, I don't mean it's low quality, because it is not. It certainly is not. That, you know, the actual quality of the graphics is very nice, and I will certainly, you know, not back out on that. It literally looks how many mobile games look. Clash of Kingdoms, that kind of thing. It looks like them. The style looks like them. And I sure hope that some Firaxis exec has not gone, hey, these games are really popular, let's make it look like that. But I wouldn't put it past. I would not put it past, you know, executive types to do that. So, yeah, the good things about it, some of the animations are lovely. The combat animations can be really nice and fun. The Legion, for example, have this animation where the front guy leaps over to make a kill and stabs the guy. It's all fun. I like the animations on the tile improvements, you know, the little mine things and the quarry things. I like all those. You know, the water wheel for the aqueduct. It's all nice. I like that everything you build can be seen on the map. We'll kind of talk about that a bit later when we talk about districts and stuff. But hell, let's talk about it now. Let's talk about districts now. They're also a mixed thing. So, districts. You, unlike other Civ games, you can build districts on the map in which you build your buildings. And in fact, most of the buildings in the game cannot be built unless you build that district. They get different boosts based on what's next to them, and yeah, that's nice. It's cool. It's interesting. It's an evolution for Civ. It means the map means a lot more to you because you can actually spread out over it, and that has an impact. That's interesting. It's nice. It also gives you an alternative to building improvements on resources, which I never did. I always kept the improvements on the resources and built around them, but I can see that high-level play might involve you slapping your campus down on this quarry if it's just a better place for a campus than anywhere else. So yeah, that's good. What's the bad thing about it? Well, it does mean that some of your city planning has to be done a long time in advance. That's not necessarily a negative, but it is something that makes the game a lot more halting to play. I'm not going to say that adding more choices and adding more thought is a bad thing. It's not. It's just, it feels less intuitive and more, well, that's a plus thing there and that's a plus thing there, and if I put that there, then that'll bounce off that. It definitely makes it, for want of a better term, it makes it more board gamey, and it makes it more, you know, you've got to plan each little... There's more min-maxing, and the min-maxing is less optional than it ever was before. I wouldn't say it's a necessity. I certainly didn't really do it much in this game, but then I was playing on a lower difficulty to learn the game. At higher difficulty levels, you're probably going to bounce into that a lot more. Maybe you'll like that, maybe you won't. Maybe it'll be a little bit of both, but it's definitely something that's not an entire positive. A lot of people have made a big deal about the fact they've got the kind of the city expansion mechanic, and they said, oh, well, Endless Legend did that first. It did do it first, and a lot of people have said, oh, they probably picked it up from that. Given the length of development cycles and the fact that Endless Legend is only a couple of years old, I don't think that's true. I think they probably hit on the idea alongside the Endless Legend devs. And it is different enough from the expansion in Endless Legend that it definitely doesn't feel like a carbon copy. So, fine. Districts, little pluses and minuses, fine. Let's move on. So, let's talk about diplomacy. Let's talk about the diplomacy in the game. So some pluses and minuses on this. Let's go to have a chat with Tamiris, Queen of the Scythian Empire, or Empress of the Scythian Empire. I'm not actually sure of my history on Tamiris, so there we go. I'm at war with her currently, so my options are limited, but, you know, they're not a lot more limited than they would be otherwise, and that's my main complaint about diplomacy. One thing that is nice is you can look at your relationship, and that you get the full details of that, which is lovely. I really like the agendas, so every leader has a permanent agenda. They'll always have. Tamiris likes civilizations who are declared friends, hates civilizations who backstab and declare surprise wars. Great! You know, a characteristic I can always rely on. And they have a hidden agenda from a common pool. Fantastic. And you don't know what this is until you reach certain access levels. You reach access levels by sending embassies and sending spies and trade routes. Great stuff. I love all that. It gives a lot more bulk to the diplomacy of the game. But what use is that bulk if there's not much to do with it other than trade and make peace and set alliances? You have demands in this game, but the demands are pretty much limited to don't settle near me, as far as I could see. Here's a lovely example. So, city-states, which we'll talk about later. Early in the game, I became the suzerain of Kabul, which means they were my vassal. Now, I don't know if this is a glitch because it happened after Japan had already declared war on me, but for example, Japan were my friends. Not anymore, as you can see. They were at war with Kabul. I became the effectively de facto ruler, the suzerain of Kabul. They carried on fighting Kabul and took them over. And at no point could I talk to Japan and say, can you stop fighting my vassal state? This was a problem in Beyond Earth as well, in that the AI were really belligerent about city-states, or outposts, I think, as they were called. Outposts? Trading hubs? Something. They were called something in Beyond Earth. And you couldn't stop them making war on them. You couldn't ask them to do that. Which is... it so irritates me. And it makes the city-state game a game of basically just hoping your opponents don't conquer your city-states. Potentially, I didn't see at any other point in the game civs who were my friends going to war with my city-states. It may have been because they were already at war with them, and the AI doesn't go, oh, now you're their suzerain, I will make peace. I don't know, but an option to just tell them to do that would be appreciated. And a number of other diplomatic nuances. Early in the game, there was Washington here, there were the Americans. And basically, they just literally surrounded my city with troops. Rome was literally surrounded with about 20 warriors that I had to fight my way through eventually. And this was while we were at peace. And there was no option to say, can you back the fuck off from my lands? I mean, hey, maybe they'd have said no and declared war if I'd done that. But the thing is, the AI can ask that. You're giving the AI tools that I don't have. I don't like that. The AI is super aggressive in the early game. That may or may not be a problem for you. That's kind of a mixed thing. So yeah, diplomacy. Mixed. It's ultimately a mixed thing. Let's talking about aggressive in the early game. Let's talk about barbarians. So, barbarians work slightly differently in this, in that they build their little forts and then they send out a scout. If the scout finds a city, they will then start spawning units and send them to you. Again, they are super aggressive. They are powerful. They are a pain in the ass in the early game. I didn't have a huge problem with them, but I could see them being a huge problem, especially on higher difficulties. Again, that's mixed. Do you think... you might think, hey, that's a new bit of a challenge. The scout mechanic is definitely an interesting mechanic. I like that. Did Civ need more barbarians in the early game that were more of a pain in the ass? I'll leave that for you to decide. I'm not sure I edge on and yes. Because Civ 5... I always felt Civ 5 went a little bit overboard with barbarians, but your mileage may vary. You may like that kind of thing. Sure, moving onwards. So, city positioning. Let's talk about city positioning. It's more important than ever in that fresh water is very important to you, and seawater is halfway towards freshwater, apparently, and is therefore also quite useful. This means that when you choose where to place your cities, you really have to take that into account, and it can make or break a city. Well, not entirely make or break. What can make or break a city is no access for an aqueduct if you don't have fresh water. So therefore, aqueducts have to be attached to your city centre and can only stretch one tile away. So if you're not next to freshwater, or 1 tile away from freshwater, or a mountain, which also counts as freshwater for the purposes of an aqueduct, your city is going to suffer compared to others. Again, is that a good thing or a bad thing? It certainly makes you think more about your city positioning. But again, is that fiddly? Is it micromanagement? Is it something that will just be a tick in the box rather than a genuinely interesting question of agency and, you know, where am I going to place this? I can't quite answer that question without playing a dozen more games and therefore getting tired of it or starting to appreciate it a bit more. It's a thing that's there. I can see pluses and minuses. Yeah, let's move on. Tech tree. The actual fundamental tech tree. It feels pretty empty. A lot of things only have one thing you develop. At least one thing has nothing. Yeah. This was a problem with vanilla Civ 5 as well, so I'm not going to make a big deal about it. Some things have been moved out into the civics tree, which is at least partly why it's the case. And I am just fully aware vanilla Civ 5 was like this as well, and then it got bulked out in the expansions. Civ, you know, Civ's one of those games where you expect the expansions to make the game, essentially. Which we can, again, that's a whole video talking about whether that should or shouldn't be the case. But regardless, it's there, it's a bit empty. A lot of text when you get them feel a bit, oh, I've got an oil well. So, you know, take that as, you know, a thing. It's a thing. Loading times. And this is mixed, which is a rare thing to be mixed. The loading time to the menu screen is a lot quicker than Civ 5. A lot quicker than Civ 5. That's nice. The loading time into the game is a lot bigger than Civ 5. I've heard other people say, oh, it's 30 seconds. And they're obviously, running off. I'm not running off an SSD. My PC is alright. It's alright. It used to be very powerful. Now, not so much. So, load times are what they are. It doesn't bother me too much. You know, I'll set it loading and then walk away and make my lunch or whatever and then come back. So, but yeah, that's there. You should know about that. It's a thing. Right. Negatives and mixed things dealt with. Let's talk about positives. And there are a lot of positives to talk about. So, combat. Combat is much more brutal than Civ 5. It feels like a weird, maybe a halfway house between vanilla Civ 5 and Brave New World, because those two really changed. It is, yeah, it's brutal, it's quick, it's powerful, it feels good. Unit upgrades feel good, they feel powerful. They've got like a tree now that you can move up. Can I actually bring that up by clicking on them? No, I cannot. But still, they're great. Promotions are interesting. You sacrifice your turn to do them, but they give you a big heal and obviously a permanent boost at the same time. They feel good. They feel chunky. You can attach units to each other. Oh my god, that's so useful. Escorting settlers and great people has never been as easy. Fantastic. You've got a mechanic where you build what are called core and then armies, where you combine units together to make them more potent. But you obviously sacrifice having multiple units. That allows you to shave your army down into being as powerful but with less unit maintenance. And individual units to be really punchy. So good. Gives you options, agency. Give me those things that I've already complained about slightly, but we'll gloss over that. Yes, fantastic. Great stuff. Sieges. Sieges are a lot more quick. You don't have to just slowly edge things down. Cities are more vulnerable, especially in the early game where they don't have walls and they literally can't even defend themselves. You have to work down defenses in order to make a city more vulnerable. There's things like encampments, which I do have one of, that you can place outside cities that also have range attacks. Yes, great stuff. Agency, options, punchier, less of a grind. Fantastic. Really a big fan of that. Let's talk about roads. Roads are not built by builders in Civ 5, and we'll talk about builders again in a minute. They are built by trade routes, just like roads were in real life for the most part. Let's exclude the Romans, which I'm playing. Never mind, ignore them. So you set up a trade route, and that's what sets up the road. In the case of Rome, I actually automatically build trade routes between my cities, which again is a nice reference to how Rome built roads, etc. But oh my god, it's so nice to not have the fiddly micromanagement of building roads in the game. Oh, so good. Right, builders. I mentioned builders. Let's talk about builders. You don't have workers in this game anymore. You have builders. Instead of a permanent unit who goes around slowly crafting things, you have a builder. A unit who moves to a place, you click improve, and it's instantly improved. They have 3 charges, and when those 3 charges are used up, they go. Fantastic. I love that. I love that. You can do things like carry out repairs to pillaged squares. That doesn't use a charge, and it's also instant. It feels just more... it really feels good. It feels much better than using workers. That's a big improvement to the game, I think. Big fan of that. Let's talk about... I'm trying to do these in a rough order that makes sense, and it probably doesn't, but hey. Let's talk about terrain types. So in previous Civs, there were certain terrain types that were basically junk, literally junk, and you wanted to get rid of them. In fact, most terrain types in Civ 5 are kind of junk, at least until the end game. In this game, no, they are not. They all serve a different purpose, and that's fantastic. They're not all wonderful, but they often have things that make them wonderful, like certain wonders, or they're really good for adjacency bonuses to certain districts. Rainforest, tundra, swamp even. All these things can be good in the right circumstances, with the right civs, with the right... But it's less fiddly. It's not like, oh, well, if you're tundra, you need to have this civ. They all have this wonderful little balance to them where you can find a way. You can find a way to them being useful. Even desert, even swamp. It's good. It's good. Petra is still the thing you want if you have desert, but, you know, it feels like there's a lot more utility that you can venture into, and that's really good. And not really something I've seen people talk about, but I think that's a good thing. Speaking of kind of terrain-ish, the map looks great. I've talked a bit about the design of the actual tiles and how I'm mixed on them, but some other things that are good. The terrain icons are really nice. They're chunky and they're easy to distinguish, and they tell you what's on there nice. It's a little thing, but I do like that. I like the way the Fog of War is a kind of like sepia tinted version of the land underneath it. It really helps me see where I can see. That makes sense. You know where my line of sight is. That's nice. I love that the map, the complete Fog of War you haven't seen, is like an old-timey map with monsters drawn on it and cartography symbols and stuff like that. Love that. Love that. Lovely little piece of design work. Great stuff. Speaking of great stuff, you see what I did there? Let's talk about great people. So, in Civ, you earn great people by earning great people points. That much has not changed. However, what has changed is that those great people aren't an infinite supply of generic great people with the same abilities. They are a pool that you draw from, that everyone is drawing from. So you, if you want a specific great person, have to beat other civs to them. So let's look at, for example, okay, we've got a great engineer here, James of St. George. He instantly builds ancient and medieval walls in a city and provides enough gold per turn to pay their maintenance. And that's all he does. You can't use him in a generic way. It shows here everyone's points in earning them that they've earned through districts or wonders or various things, policies, or you can recruit them with patronage, which is something that can be spent in either gold or faith. And obviously you spend less for patronage the more points you have. So you can kind of, if you're edging behind someone and they're nearing them, you can just pip them to the post with it. It's really good. It's really, really good. Great generals and great admirals are slightly different in that they have a passive boost, and they can also be used up to do something. The passive boost usually has a kind of time limit, which is that, for example, so there's a passive effect for Anna Nzinga. Apologies if I say that wrong. Extra combat strength and movement to Renaissance and Industrial Era land units. So once you're not fielding those anymore, feel free to just retire the guy and use his active ability. Get rid of him for a little bit of a boost. Oh, lovely. Lovely stuff. I really like it. Again, choices, agency, which I've already criticised you. We'll ignore the fact that I criticised them for that a bit with the city positioning and the districts. But, you know, there's choice and agency, and there's slightly fiddly choice and agency, and I'm not sure that those two that I've mentioned don't fall on that fiddly side of it. Maybe they won't. I might change my mind after a couple of playthroughs. So great people, they're great. City-states. Let's talk about city-states. Something I really liked in Civ 5, but they had their problems, they had their issues. They are mostly resolved in this one, although they still seem to be just sitting around on ridiculously regressive tech at this stage in the game. But here we go. Here's the excellent thing about them. Your control over them and relationship to them is determined by envoys. You earn influence points on a regular basis, and you can boost that point rate and stuff like that. And the more points you get, the more envoys you can send out to them. The more envoys you have, the more boosts you get from them, which are permanent, and as far as I can tell, can't be taken away. And once you have 3, basically, if you have more envoys with them than any other civ, and that number of envoys is at least 3, you become their suzerain, and they become your vassal. A number of things become interesting from that point. They follow you into war and peace. You can enter their lands. Your builder units can improve their tiles. You get vision around them. You can play gold to temporarily take control of their military, which would be more handy if they didn't have warriors in 1290 AD. And you gain ownership of all their resources. Fantastic, great stuff. In addition to which, and in addition to these boosts you're already getting for having a certain number of envoys with them, each individual city-state has a unique bonus. Oh, how cool and fantastic. And some of them are massive or fun. Leventa, the unique bonus, your builders can now make colossal head improvements. I think they're culture and faith things, and they look so cool. You can't actually see them because none of the cities I've got to have them yet. But they are cool, trust me. Another great one from Hattusa, one which is insane. It provides you with 1 of each strategic resource you have revealed but do not own. Oh my god, so good. I really like the city-state stuff in this. It's a lot of fun. Even the presentation of them, I like they've all got their own little symbol. These little things like that I like, as regular viewers will know. So yeah, that's great. Speaking of strategic resources and Hattusa, the way strategic resources work is different. So you no longer need 1 strategic resource for each type of unit related to that resource to build them. Now you just need 1, and you can build as many as you want. On the other hand, if you lose access to all your strategic resources of that type, they struggle to heal. They will not heal units, or they heal them at a vastly reduced rate. I'm not sure which, because it never happened to me, but that's a much better way round than needing massive stacks of iron to build like an army with a lot of units made of iron. Yeah, that was a bit of a pain in the ass. So there we go. What else do we have to talk about? We talked about the leader graphics, how I like them already. The fact that there are leaders are good. It's a bit of a wonky example because in the game at the moment, so like Civ 4, for example, and compared to Civ 5, you don't just pick your Civ, you pick the Civ's leader as well. So there's an extra bonus you get from that, and a bit more variety in Civs. So let's have a look, for instance, at good old Trajan here, who's leading us. So the Rome boost is all roads lead to Rome, which is you start with trading posts, you start with roads, and you get more gold for trading routes leading through your own cities. And plus you get a legion, and you get the bath instead of an aqueduct. Trajan's column is Trajan's specific boost, which is all cities start with a monument. Now, it's a bit of a wonky thing to like, because on launch, only 1 Civ has 2 leaders, which is Greece, who has Pericles and Gorgo. So it's an interesting one. I'm looking forward to there being more leaders in the game. But it's a nice thing that they're in there. That is nice. Let's talk about something a bit fiddly now. Let's talk about amenities and housing. So a brief explanation of these. These effectively kind of replace happiness, although housing also does a bit more than that. So essentially, let's try and take a look at this. So amenities is a concept that completely replaces happiness, which has always been a wonky mechanic. So amenities are taken from, and let's get all this right, amenities are taken from A, luxury resources that are spread through your cities, from civics, from entertainment districts, from great people, from religion, from national parks, from war weariness, from bankruptcy, those are negatives, etc., etc. The requirement for amenities goes up as your city population goes up. So it does become a bit of a thing. If you go too high and your amenities drop too low, your cities can rebel. That's a lot nicer than a global happiness concept, because A, it interferes a lot less with growing wide. By the end of this game, I had a shit ton of cities, and amenities were starting to become a problem, but that's nice. I had to expand to be huge before things became a problem, and it was still a problem I could have dealt with in a number of ways. I had options, agency, etc., etc. I could have built more entertainment districts. I could have slotted more civics that dealt with amenities a lot better. Fantastic. Let's talk about housing. Housing is controlled by your access to fresh water initially, and then by certain districts, certain improvements, certain buildings, it's certain civics, etc. Great people. It's essentially a cap on the population of your city. Once you go past it, your growth rate slows to a crawl. And you can see here, I have matched it. I've got 7 housing, 7 citizens, and my growth rate is slowed to 75%. I really like that. I really like something you have to consider to grow your cities higher. And it also acts as another counter in place now that happiness has gone. But a counter that's easier and more obvious to deal with, and which makes more narrative sense, for want of a better word. I love amenities. I love housing. They're really good. Let's talk about wonders. Some people have, I've seen some people, I'm trying not to name up the YouTubers, no, it matters, they'll never see this, right? Talking about wonders and saying, oh, they feel a little more weaker compared to Civ 5 and a bit more of a trap. People have always considered wonders a trap, in that you're better off not building them, essentially. And they soak up a load of production. I've never, well, they're right. But I still build them anyway because I really like them. Wonders in this, A, they have to fit on a tile, which means you really have to consider where they're going to go. And again, they can provide boosts or get boosts depending on where they're placed. I've really liked them. I've seen pretty much every wonder and gone, hey, that's handy. Some of them are a bit like just plus this amount, I guess, but no, they've all seem really handy to me. I love there's an animation for building them, which unfortunately I can't really show you. And I love that they're on the map and they're pretty and they seem useful to me. And you know what? I really like that a lot of them have building requirements. So let's take a look here. So all these wonders here in Kimai, am I looking at? Yeah, I'm looking at Kimai. Kimai can literally only build the Forbidden City out of this entire list. They do not have the requirements ticked to build the rest of them, whether those be certain buildings nearby, or a positioning, or a terrain type. It means that civs are racing against each other for wonders a lot less. And that's nice. It's nice that your positioning means that you only get certain wonders, and those are your wonders to kind of build, or maybe you only have one competitor for those wonders. I much prefer that. I much prefer that. It just feels a lot more satisfying, and it's taking away a lot of the kind of niggling, oh, is someone going to build this ahead of me, blah, 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 sort of thing. So there we go. That's wonders. I talked about how I didn't like there's no diplomatic victory. There is a religious victory. Is that for the first time? Was there one in Civ 4? I can't remember. I haven't played around with it, so I can't talk about it too much. That's good. I like that it's there. That's my contribution on that matter. I can't actually talk about religion a huge amount because I didn't get one in my first game on a really easy difficulty level. They are again limited. You have to snaffle up all these great profits before they all go, and they went super early in my game. And yeah, I didn't get a religion, which meant I couldn't play around with it a lot, and I wasn't sure if I could effectively try and take over the Japanese religion as my state religion. I made it the religion in my capital. I don't think I can do that, which is an option that could be nice, so you could still, you know, maybe win a religious victory if you didn't get a religion at the beginning. It's an option, but there we go. I like that there is one there. Okay, I'm looking at my list, and there's not an awful lot of stuff left. Yeah, there's not an awful lot of stuff left. In fact, I think we are down to 2 things, guys. 2 things. So let's talk about them, and they're 2 of my favourite things in the game. One is the music. Obviously, you can hear a little bit of it in this video. It's really nice. It's really nice. The menu music is great, which sounds like an odd thing to praise. But yeah, it's really fantastic and dramatic. And it's also the loading screen music, so it pumps you up for the game. But the music in the game is lovely. It's lovely performed. Hey, Civ 5 music was great as well. I think this is better. It's lovely. It also evolves through the game where you get like kind of new renditions of the music on more modern instruments, on different pieces of music as well. And in the end game, you like when I was getting towards the real end game, I had this like sort of like cyberpunky like I don't know, like 80s sci-fi music, kind of twinkly thing with keyboards and synths and stuff. It was great. It's great. It's a lot of fun. I believe the music director for this game is Christopher Tin, who, if my memory serves me right, was also the music director for Futurama, which also had beautiful, excellent music. Yeah, I might be wrong. Christopher Tin, Christopher Ting. Maybe they're just two people with very similar names. Yeah, so that was nice. And maybe incorrect. Now, my favourite thing in Civ 6. My favourite thing in Civ 6. And I've been shuffling through this in kind of a random order, but here we go. Boosts and inspirations. Anyone who has gone into the game with, you know, a bit of research and watched some preview YouTube content or whatever, or has read preview stuff. I shouldn't exclusively talk about YouTubers. I should talk about good review sites as well, like Rock Paper Shotgun, who did excellent previews. Go read Rock Paper Shotgun. Boosts are things you can do in order to advance your progress on scientific research. So, for example, to get a boost halfway towards rifling, and it is half of the research, which is incredible, I need to build a niter mine. To boost military science, I need to kill a unit with a knight. To boost steam power, I need to build 2 shipyards. Different ones of these are more tricky than others, but oh my god, it is both flavorful and it's giving you, let me hear it, choices and agency. If you want to beeline towards something, you've got to do something to do that. Something that is appropriate to the pursuit of that research, not just, you know, vague playing the game and pumping your research in that direction. Oh, it's so nice. Everything on the tech tree has something for that, apart from the first 3 techs. Everything on the civics tree, they're called inspirations, but they're the same thing. These seem a little more difficult to me. These seem a little more difficult, or at least I struggled with these a little bit more. Everything has them on these, apart from the one thing, which you may start... No, I don't think you start with it, but Code of Laws doesn't have one. Oh, they're lovely, and they're nice, and they're great. Yeah, they add choice and agency, blah, 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 blah. You've heard me talk about that 1,000 times. And yeah, they're really flavourful, and they're good. They're good. I'm trying to find different words for it being good, but they're just good. I've remembered, over the course of this entire video, something bad that I didn't talk about at the beginning. So we'll end on a bit of a downer, but hey, it's me, you know. Would it be the bastard if we didn't end on a bit of a downer? The narration in the game is by Sean Bean. And I never thought I'd say this, but I don't like it. I never thought I'd say something bad about Sean Bean. He's genuinely one of my favourite actors. And I love that it's a distinct voice as a choice, you know, a British regional accent, a Yorkshire accent. I really like that. I live in Yorkshire, you know, I'm from the north. I like that. The quotes they've got him to read are, for the most part, seem to be quirky or humorous, which doesn't really match with his delivery. And I don't like a lot of the quotes anyway. A lot of the ancient texts have kind of modern quirky little quotes that seem only tangentially related. Oh, it annoys me. It annoys me that they've done this to Sean Bean. I would have loved him to have had a lot more dramatic, powerful quotes. So it comes across a bit lackluster, and that's not great. But his opening narration when you pick your Civ and stuff is nice. So, you know, no, it's not a negative, it's a mixed bag. I feel like they could have used Sean Bean better, which is not something you hear in a lot of video games. Oblivion, there's another game that could have used Sean Bean better. So yeah, that's what I think of Civ 6. This has been a bit of an unusual video for us. It's not a review. I wouldn't ever claim for it to be a review. We've been a bit more finicky about details of mechanics and less talking about the overall feel of the game than I would be in a review type scenario, and ATCB doesn't really do reviews anyway. But as those are my first impressions, that's my first impressions of Civ 6. Undoubtedly a season of this will open at some point on the channel. I'm kind of holding off on the moment because we're running Endless Legend right now, the Tempest DLC, and they are similar enough in they're both 4X games with tile improvement mechanics, etc, etc, that I didn't really want to run them alongside each other at the same time. We'll see whether I change my mind on that. But yeah, overall, Civ 6, I have enjoyed it. I would say it's a better game in its vanilla state than Civ 5, but that it is definitely not as good a game as developed Civ 5 with the Gods and Kings and Brave New World expansions. I wasn't necessarily expecting it to be. Civ games, as I've hinted at already, bloom with their expansions, and I'm fully expecting Civ 6 to do the same, and I do think that Civ 6 has the potential, when fully expanded, to beat Brave New World. And really, that's as high praise as I can give it, I guess. I'm enjoying playing it. I will enjoy playing it even more, but I'm also not going to give up Civ 5 Brave New World just yet. I'll probably play some games of that as well. So yeah, thanks for watching this ATCB Variety Hour, which has some variety. It's usually not an hour, but this may have been. I have no idea how long this has taken because I've left my phone in the kitchen. Details you didn't need to know. So yeah, thanks for watching. Check out some of our other Civ content if you want. We've got a couple of seasons of Beyond Earth, a couple of seasons of Civ 5. Yeah, and some Civ 6 to come. Endless Legend is there if you want to take a dabble in that. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you next time for another game on the ATCB Variety Hour. Bye, folks.